Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Over the past several days, 3 females have been found dead.
Looks like someone's going after these girls.
Then they have to know to watch their backs.
Streaming March 13th.
You really want what happened to this woman? That happened to you?
Exactly why I need to keep going on this.
Starring Emmy Award winner Amanda Seyfried.
I'm worried about what you're gonna find. So am I.
Long Bright River, a limited series. Streaming March 13th, only on Peacock.
Finish this sentence. A home isn't complete without...
family.
Matt?
Love.
Well, that's fitting.
I like his answer better.
I mean,
I think they fit together.
That they both mean something similar.
And
often.
it could,
not
but also Bianca and Matt, it could certainly a home could be a home if you were there alone. So maybe a
That's
family.
True.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah. Well, it was a rapid fire question, Loren. You were put on the spot. Yeah.
As you can see, we're not great at the rapid fire because the reason why I said love is because honestly, the book Home was like birthed from the book Home, you know? Or the flip side, yeah.
Yeah, which we're definitely going to talk about. Hey everyone, I'm Bianca Schulze, founder of the Children's Book Review, and this is the Growing Readers Podcast. Welcome to today's special conversation about the powerful concept of home. I'm thrilled to welcome back 2 extraordinary talents who have reunited for their second collaboration after their #1 New York Times bestseller, Love. Matt de la Peña is the Newbery Medal-winning author of Last Stop on Market Street, whose gift for lyrical storytelling has captivated readers of all ages. His award-winning picture books include The Perfect Place, Patchwork, Milo Imagines the World, Carmela Full of Wishes, Love, and A Nation's Hope, the story of boxing legend Joe Louis, alongside his critically acclaimed young adult novels. Matt brings a unique perspective to children's literature, often weaving profound themes from his own experiences into accessible stories that spark important conversations between children and adults. Joining Matt is the beloved illustrator Loren Long, whose distinctive artistic vision has brought joy to countless readers through the New York Times bestselling Otis series, which has now been adapted into an animated television series. Loren's warm, expressive artwork has also graced the pages of Amanda Gorman's Change Sings, Barack Obama's Of Thee I Sing, and his previous collaboration with Matt, the best-selling Love. His ability to capture emotion through light, color, and composition creates worlds that readers of all ages want to step into and explore. Together, these 2 creative forces have reunited to craft a new masterpiece titled Home, a meditation on the universal pull of home in all its forms, from physical spaces to human connections to our place in the natural world. Their collaboration represents the perfect symbiosis of words and images, each elevating the other to create a picture book experience that resonates deeply with readers, young and old. So please join me in welcoming Matt de la Peña and Loren Long as they share insights about their latest creation. But first, here's the synopsis for Home. From a Newbery Medal-winning author and a best-selling illustrator, the powerhouse duo behind the #1 New York Times bestseller Love comes a deeply moving ode to the places we feel safe, loved, and true to ourselves, wherever they might be. is a tired lullaby and a late-night traffic that mumbles in through a crack in your curtains. Home is the faint trumpet of a distant barge as your grandfather casts his line from the edge of his houseboat. So begins this stirring celebration of home in its many forms. For home is an idea more profound than the walls we build up around ourselves. It's the family that shows its love through small gestures every day. It's the community that sees one another through hard times. And it's the wonder of the natural world, a refuge we share with everything living, a refuge we share with every living thing on earth. With lyrical text and expressive artwork, Matt de la Peña and Loren Long's meditation on the universal pull of home, whatever its form, is destined to become a new classic that will be cherished by readers of every age. Hello, Matt. Welcome back to the Growing Readers Podcast.
Hello, Bianca. Thanks for having me.
And hello, Loren Long.
Hello, Bianca. Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see both of you. Familiar characters on the show and also familiar to so many readers. So I'm beyond grateful to have both of you at the same time. What a treat for me. I do hope everybody goes back and listens to the episodes that feature both of you, because we kind of have gone into your backstories becoming writers and progression. So everybody go back and listen to that, because today we're going to start off with just some fun rapid fire questions. The book we're talking about is The Beautiful Home. So some of these rapid fire questions are home based, but let's start with you, Matt. What's the first memory that comes to mind when you hear the word home?
I thought you were going to say my first memory. And I was just having this conversation with my two kids about my first memory. And I was like, I think it was at age 21. And they were like, what? So wait, my first memory when it comes to home. I was born in National City, which is in San Diego. And I was brought home to my grandmother's house where we lived for 5 years. So it's like this big old family in this tiny little house.
Love it. Loren, what about you? What comes to mind? What's the first memory when you think or hear the word home?
I love this question because it contrasts with Matt's life so much, and it's so cool that we have collaborated now on our second book from different worlds. Joplin, Missouri is what I think of. A little 2-bedroom house, and my dad converted the garage into a little family room. And the other memory is somewhere along the way, we had a basset hound that had a big litter of puppies. So we have photos of me and like in diapers with these little puppies all around me. So that's one of the first memories I have for home. And it was that little home that I was, where I was born.
Love it. And you still are, have a dog by your side too. You have Charlie.
Oh, yeah, Charlie. My wife and I have raised 4 dogs and 2 boys, with similar success, I think.
Awesome.
Bianca, I have to butt in. I have a dog too, and I feel really bad about my dog right now because she had 3 teeth pulled yesterday. So she is in a haze of painkillers. And so I just want to take a moment for my dog, Ramona. It's a Shih Tzu. It's asleep 23 hours out of 24 every day. But now especially, she's down for the count.
Oh my gosh. Well, then it wouldn't be fair if I didn't come in and say that my dog Poppy wants a shout out, and she's having tummy troubles right now, but I won't. I'll spare the details. All right.
Bianca, as you know, Charlie is my studio buddy, and I know this is just a audio podcast, but he's over there on the couch. We brought the couch back into the studio.
Yeah. Does that mean that the yellow bus, that your diorama is no longer there?
I have disassembled the yellow bus and the diorama for the yellow bus, and it's in parts down in my basement. storage. Like I said, I keep waiting for the Smithsonian to call. My phone isn't always charged, so I'm sure I missed their call.
All right. Well, let's start with you on this one, Loren. Finish this sentence. A home isn't complete without
Family.
Matt.
Love.
Well, that's fitting.
I like his answer better.
I mean,
Well, I think they fit together.
That they both mean something similar.
And
often, not
but
always.
also Bianca and Matt, it could certainly a home could be a home if you were there alone. So maybe a family.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah. Well, it was a rapid fire question, Loren. You were put on the spot. Yeah.
As you can see, we're not great at the rapid fire because the reason why I said love is because honestly, the book Home was like birthed from the book Home, you know?
Yeah.
Or I mean, the flip side. Yeah.
Yeah. Which we're definitely going to talk about. So, all right. Between a cozy reading nook, a busy kitchen table, or a front porch swing, where would you feel most at home and why? Matt?
Okay, I'll go first. I think I have to say the two quiet places. And I think I'm going to pick the front porch. Like that sounds so nice and calm. And even though I love the noise of my kids being around, sometimes my favorite is just this quiet little space where you get to read.
Loren?
Yeah, as much as I would, the romantic side, I would say that swing. However, we do have a screened back porch, and it's one of my favorite places to be ever, you know, and I've read manuscripts there, and I've written there, and I read Matt de la Peña's manuscript for Love there, and I remember sitting with a cup of coffee, and I didn't say anything, and then I handed it over to Tracy, my wife, because I want her to, I love when she gets to read what I may illustrate. So the back porch.
Back porch. All right. And if your childhood had a signature sound that meant home, what would that sound be?
So easy for me. I grew up next to the train tracks, and to this day, anytime I hear a train whistle in the distance, to me, it is like the sound of childhood.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I have two sounds. This is from Kentucky in the 70s. This is after Missouri. One, a dog barking. We always had dogs. My mom usually had them relegated to the backyard, which is not my doggy parenting style. But the second is the bouncing of a basketball on the driveway.
Ooh.
We always had...
Matt relates
You just drew me in.
Yeah. We had neighborhood kids all around. I was never an accomplished basketball player, but we always played. There was somebody playing 3-on-3 or horse or pig, you know, basketball bouncing.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's talk about the book that you're here to talk about
Bianca,
today.
could I just say, those rapid fire questions were amazing. I want all podcasts to be just those from now on.
I do love it. Matt, maybe we could get Bianca to just do rapid fire for the next 40 minutes.
Seriously. It just takes you to places you didn't expect, you know?
Well, I mean, you know, like I feel like I'm going to say, can we have some longer answers now when we talk about the questions? Because I do like I feel like those are maybe the spontaneous thoughts, but the questions I'm going to ask you now are things that I know probably crossed your mind or thoughts when you were creating the book. But your previous collaboration, Love, was a #1 New York Times bestseller. So I need to know what drew you both back together for another meditation on such a fundamental human experience, home. And I'm assuming that it started with you, Matt?
Well, you know what? It actually started with me and Loren when we were on tour for Love, because I think we've been trying to get back to a second collaboration since then. We were brainstorming even on the road or on email after the Love tour, trying to figure out another word. And it's so strange that it didn't come for so long because we wanted to get the right meditation. And I remember I was, living in San Diego now where I live. I was at a coffee shop where I always work, and I opened a new file. I was ready to write a new picture book poem. And so I remember writing that first line about a parent reading and the traffic coming in through the curtains, mumbling in. And I remember thinking, this feels different. I think this could be its own project. And so I started writing that poem. And, it took me a while because it was hard for me to grasp what I was doing. Looking back, I can't believe I didn't understand right away that this was like in concert with love. But the minute I popped the title on, Home, I thought Loren Long. And then, similar to Loren, I passed it to my wife, Caroline, and she said, at the end, she said, Loren Long. And then I sent it to my agent, and he said, Loren Long. And then to top it off, it ended up going to our editor. And the first thing she said to me is she said, Loren Long. And we were like, okay, thank God there's no controversy.
I love it. Well, I think that every time I write something, I'm like, oh yeah, Loren Long.
Absolutely.
No, that's awesome. And actually, listeners can't see what I see, but Loren was like grabbing the book home and like flipping pages. And I'm so curious what you were looking for just then, Loren.
I just like to put myself in Matt's shoes as he was describing that, because it comes as a pretty final, as you know, manuscript by the time I see it. So I was just like, I just looked at that first line to put myself, kind of imagine where Matt was when he did write that. And yeah, because it seems to me that Home is definitely related to the book Love. Matt and I talked about it on our tour, and I would have thought if you'd have told me in 2018 in January or February when Love came out, I would have thought by now we'd have done maybe 2 other books, maybe 3, because it was just such a great experience. But we had a pandemic. We both had our independent work schedules and contracts and things. So, but I'm happy now that we have come back to Home.
Yeah. Well, I already shared this story with Loren, but I'm going to share it with Matt. Back in 2016, when Love came out, you were on tour and you went to the American Library Association winter conference. And I was actually there doing a book signing as well. And you guys were there signing, but you were signing at a time before mine. So I lined up to go and get my copy of Love signed. But your line was like, it was wrapping around the place. It was so long, and I had to go to my table. So I couldn't stay. And I don't remember who it was, but somebody so lovely from Penguin said, don't worry, Bianca, I'll get your copy and I'll get it signed. So I just want to show you my quick page here. I have my beloved signed copy of Love. And I think, Loren, you must have done that cute little umbrella there. But so I just I had Jamie Lee Curtis on the show, and I was like, I'm not going to fangirl. And then I realized during that conversation, I wasn't my complete self because I wanted to fangirl. So I'm going to have a fangirl moment and just say, you two are the rock stars of children's books. Your writing is incredible, Matt. You've won awards. You've had movies made. And Loren, your artwork, it's award-winning. It's best-selling. You've got your Netflix series for Otis. Just so cool. So I just wanted to share that moment that what you do is meaningful and you're reaching readers' hearts. You're inspiring people like me to write their own stories. I wish I could create art. I won't stop doodling, but my art's never going to be seen in a book. But I just wanted to take a moment to fangirl and say thanks for what you do.
Well, thank you so much. And by the way, I can share your position there about looking over at another author or illustrator who has a massive line, because one time I was in Nebraska, I had just won the Newbery. I had a decent line, but I looked over at Loren's and it was like 17 times longer than any of our lines. And I was like, whose line is that? And they were like, Loren Long. And I was like, So yeah, Loren, the best thing you could do is team up with the man.
It's not always the long line, but that was fun.
Well, both the text and art weave together comfort and sorrow. So Matt, in our last conversation, you said you think what you try to write is a feeling and not a message. So what goes into your approach balancing flip-flopping emotions throughout like a narrative when you're writing for young readers?
Yeah, so I think the way I've started to understand it is that I'm most interested in just exploring something I don't fully understand or I'm trying to wrap my head around. And I definitely never want to have a message, because I just think when you write a message and you're trying to teach something, it's a different project, but when you're just exploring something, and the way I think of it is I'm exploring it alongside the readers. And often I don't really understand a book until it comes out and I hear what readers think. And then I go, oh, wow, like I now see this different. So I love for that to allow for those possibilities. But I think with Home, part of it, Loren mentioned the pandemic earlier. Here we all were stuck at home, quote unquote. And it was so interesting for me to not be on the road. We all travel so much. And here I was at home with my family, like so happy to be there in that space, but also watching the natural world reclaim parts of the neighborhood that had been, dominated by humans. And so it was so interesting to watch that development. So I think that is where it came from. And then I just thought about how we humans were always trying to tame the natural world in order to, impose our will or take from the natural world for energy, whatever it may be. And then I thought, well, we're trying so hard to think of ourselves as separate from the natural world, but I feel like the truth synthesis of becoming one with the natural world might be the ultimate thing that we should be trying to do. And that's where the book came from. And of course, that's so incredibly abstract. And then I had to try to find a way to make it more concrete.
Yeah. Well, it features some really diverse settings from houseboats to city streets. So what personal experiences or memories helped you influence you in the different kinds of homes that you chose to include?
Well, the greatest gift I've been given as a writer for kids is that I get to go visit different communities. I was just in South Carolina, in Greenville, South Carolina, and I can't believe how many times, and this may happen to you too, Loren, but I can't believe how many times I'm in a community that we don't hear much about, and I go, wow, I could live here. This is it's cool people. It's affordable. There's cool little stores, maybe a little coffee shop that I visit for a few days in a row. And I go, wow, I could actually live here. So it's such a gift to see all these little pockets of community around the country. And I think sometimes the media focuses on the coasts or the big cities in between, and we forget about these incredible little jewels that are off the beaten path. And so that definitely is a factor for some of the settings. Also, Loren and I are, starting with Love, we're very conscious of bringing as many people into our stories, especially an idea story like Home and Love, because there's not one main character. So you want to try to populate those stories with as many different kinds of people, young people, as you can. So that's also a big factor.
Yeah. And Loren, we're going to go more into your artwork in a minute, but is there anything you wanted to add on to what Matt was saying?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many examples we could go on and on, but Matt gave me, and I'll just share briefly. Matt gave me an opportunity to illustrate images for Love, and now again for Home, that I never would have dreamed I would be illustrating for a children's picture book. And one of them is what he was saying in Love and Home, was just representing not only inclusive, ethnicities and race and the kinds of children that we are writing to, but also their lives, where they live, their geography, or their geographical background, their type of house they live in. The trailer scene was like the third image of Love, and we got letters about that and met people that said, that's how I grew up. There were several examples of that in Love, and I think there will be again for Home.
Yeah. Well, I love that this story, like we're talking a lot about home, and people sometimes confuse home for house, which in a way, like they are connected. But so much of this story emphasizes human connections. So from a quiet father's guidance to a grandmother making tortillas. So what was the inspiration for these particular moments of connection? And I'm sure it's kind of similar to what you just said, but we've got these beautiful written descriptions and images of what people's homes look like. But then we've got what does home really mean, and these beautiful connections that show it. So what inspired those?
So, I was thinking about this book when I was in South Carolina because, obviously I wasn't talking about home because it's not out yet. And the kids that I was talking to hadn't been exposed to it yet. But I was thinking, oh my gosh, I would love to ask these kids, when you think of the concept of home, what do you think about? And I thought all of them are going to say a house or a trailer or an apartment, wherever they live. And then I thought, my dream, I don't know if this will happen, but this is my hope. We read the book, we talk about the book. And then if I ask that same question again, I believe that some of the kids at least would start to think beyond the physical structure. And I think one of my favorite things Loren chose to do was have a cover of a book called Home that has no house. And, you're speaking to the relationship between people, right? The calloused hand of a father, a grandmother, like telling little chisme while she's making tortillas. But the final turn, of course, is to the natural world. So there are these two other things to consider. There's the physical structure, like a house or apartment. There are their relationships. And then the final one is our place in the universe. And I think those latter two are the most interesting to me.
Yeah. Loren, I'm going to direct the next question to you. So Matt describes home through some really beautiful sensory details like tired lullaby and late night traffic. So what goes into developing these really intimate and specific moments? So translating those sensory experiences that Matt puts forward in his words and turning them into your masterful visual art.
Well, the nuts and bolts of it is I sit with the manuscript and read it over and over and let it sink in. And I liked what Matt said about tapping into a feeling. And as the illustrator, that's what I'm trying to do as well. So I want, when somebody reads Home or any of my books for that matter, I want them to hear the words, but I want them to see the visuals. But I want them to feel the visuals. I want them to feel my art, And if you can put the feeling of Matt's words next to my visuals and get a feeling, an emotion, that's the goal, I think. And so I thought Matt's words for home were equally powerful as Matt's words for love. I also thought they were very clever. For some reason, I kept thinking to myself, this is clever, as I was reading through what he had written about home. And so, yeah, for me, it's just all right, if it's an illustration assignment for the illustrators out there that might be listening, we've talked a lot about this, Matt and I. It's not his work, at least the ones I've illustrated. It's not like Last Stop, which is more of a narrative, right, Matt? There's a main character and a secondary character and a beginning, a middle, and an end. They're going somewhere. Whereas these are more poetic and lyrical and theme-oriented picture books. Matt can speak to that more eloquently than I can, but it's a different illustration assignment. My assignment is not to get in the way of this poem, My assignment is to fit into it as powerfully as I can. And if I can get feeling out of it, like an emotional hit out of a page turn, then I think I've done my job.
Yeah.
I was never really a runner. The way I see running is a gift, especially when you have stage 4 cancer. I'm Anne. I'm running the Boston Marathon, presented by Bank of America. I run for Dana-Farber Cancer Institute to give people like me a chance to thrive in life, even with cancer.
Join Bank of America in helping Anne's cause. Give if you can at BofA.com/supportAnne. What would you like the power to do? References to charitable organizations is not an endorsement by Bank of America Corporation. Copyright 2025.
Oh, sheet.
Honey, chill. It's just laundry.
Not that. I'm talking about these Arm & Hammer Power Sheets. All the power of Arm & Hammer laundry detergent in a convenient tossable sheet.
Oh, sheet.
That's what I'm saying.
And Arm & Hammer Power Sheets deliver an effective clean at a great price. Think of all the laundry we'll do.
And all the money we'll save. Oh, sheet.
Arm & Hammer, more power to you.
Well, Loren, the reviews are coming in, right? And the praise is for your use of color and shading. So if there's anything more to add on what you just said, can you talk to us about how you approached that emotional landscape of this book? So if you want to sort of, I guess, get underneath the words, right? Was there anything that you read, and what do you do to get into the mindset, to get underneath and like lift the words? I don't know if that question is clear. It's like it's one coming from my heart versus one that I wrote down. So,
I think it's just sensitivity, I mean, Matt is a sensitive writer, and you might not have thought that this stuff would come from a guy who was a college basketball player. And but there's just a great deal of empathy in Matt's words. And I hope that people feel that in my art. And so I think the one little technique I do, and I kind of joke about it because I'm still working very traditionally, as you know, Bianca. I don't work with a computer. I'm dabbling a little bit in it, and maybe someday I will go there. But to this point, and I have nothing against it. People are doing amazing stuff on making books digitally, and I just don't do it yet. I love working with my hands. But one of my practices is doing a drawing. It's a little thumbnail. It's a little pencil drawing. And then I take the words, in this case, Matt's words, and I cut them out. I call it Loren Shop. And I cut them out and I tape them with Scotch tape next to my drawing. And I see what kind of feeling that invokes. It just either feels really good and I can't wait to make that painting, or it's like, okay, no, something's not quite hitting there, or I need a little more of the scene, or I need less of it. And then it's just drawing on your life experiences. Some of the images in Home and Love are me illustrating what Matt is saying. And then other moments are me bringing my own imagination and ideas to the text. And his word manuscripts give me a lot of room for that. And it's fun as an illustrator. It's a hard assignment because there isn't just one character doing this, and this in a specific setting. These are all different settings. So you do have to try to take these big, powerful themes and condense them for our audience, which are children.
Yeah.
I'm talking in circles a little bit, but hopefully that makes a little sense.
I think when you illustrate from a place, or even write from a place of more instinct, right, there isn't necessarily a clear answer. Like it's just you. It's you putting yourself forth. So I think that was the beautiful answer. Thank you.
One quick example is the face in Home. It echoes the face spread in Love, but I'm also working with a team. I have an art director and an editor, and they pushed back a little bit on the face. They didn't think it was maybe the best solution for that moment. But to me, I was just like, no, man, in my gut, that's just going to be one of the powerful images of this book. I can't wait to paint this. And it's daring, like kind of, Matt, you could speak to this, but it's that child looking out at that reader saying, this is a feeling and an emotion right now.
Loren, let me ask you, you're describing the image towards the end where Earth is reflected in the child's eyes, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the text on that page is actually, maybe I'll bring Matt in because he's got, it's so fun. At least for Love and Home, he's memorized the book, committed it to memory. So I don't want to put you on the spot, Matt. What are the words on that?
No problem. It's the text on that image it's the thump, thump, thump of the Earth's sentimental song inviting you into the harmony of things.
So as you're an illustrator and you're reading those black and white words on the manuscript, and you're thinking, there's nothing in that says, it doesn't say it's a big face, but it's like, I know that paired with those words could be really powerful. And I know that's like the second to the last image in the whole book. And so I'm like, let's zoom in. But it's one of my favorite pictures from the book. Every time you illustrate a book, Bianca, you have a few favorites. And home is no exception.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my next question of, is there a favorite moment? And it sounds as though that moment is a favorite. But why don't we ask Matt, like, what's your highlight? Let's focus on the artwork right now. Like, what's your favorite illustration?
So what I love is like Loren will, read a manuscript out on his back porch, and he'll decide after reading it a few times, can I see my art sitting next to these words? Well, I get the flip side of that. The book is done in terms of text, and then I get to see the finished art. And there's nothing that's more exciting than seeing that for the first time, because I'm actually not somebody who, when I'm writing, I'm thinking of the visual story. I just write a poem, and I try to make the language as musical as possible, and I try to locate the arc of the story. But when I see the art, I'm like always so excited. And I think from the very beginning, the face with the eyes, to me, it's the ultimate version of second person in writing. Like, it's almost in a way, it's second person in an illustration. Is the face staring right at you, right at the reader, the audience, kind of like Loren said, daring you to look away. And here's this young person who's found connection with the natural world to the point that, in that child's eyes, you see the earth. So that was definitely a favorite. And actually, I also have to highlight the one before that, which is, it's another thump, thump, thump line, but it's being in a forest of redwoods, these big, magnificent trees that show you how small you are. And then simultaneously, the child is wading into this clear, perfectly still, cold lake. I think those two things for me are an example of, wow, look how small we are in the world and how we have to be humble. So I think that those two together are, to me, they're the highlights.
Yeah. So then, Loren, like flip side of that, were there specific words that Matt wrote that you were the most excited to put a piece of art to?
Definitely. It's funny too. Definitely those two spreads, the thump, thump, thump. I love that. And that moment, that feeling, but those were cool. But I have to go back. One of my favorite things when I read it, I was like, oh man, I know what I'm going to do there. That's the fun thing, Bianca, about this work we're so blessed to get to do. It's like, I do feel like I'm a kid at times, and like I'm in 7th grade. I'm going to draw that. That's going to be so fun, But when I read these words, I'll do it. Through the back window of an old truck, you watch the only home you've ever known grow smaller and smaller behind you. And so I thought, being, my sensibility or whatever, I just thought of the grapes of wrath, That wasn't a big leap, but it's like, it's going to be my grapes of wrath image, And so I was really excited to do it. And I purposely designed that in a way, a little bit like I designed the image in Love, where the little child's under the table, under the piano. And that is, you have the mother on the far extreme left of the spread and the father on the far extreme right. And then you have the child in the middle. And even though there's some turbulence there, there's still love. And even though I'm thinking about these things in my little brain as I'm trying to make this stuff. But same with this image. It's like they've lost their home. In Matt's text, the father's on the far extreme right and the mother's on the far extreme left, and the child is in the middle. But yet, like there was still love in that one turbulent scene in Love, there's still home in this scene and home, those are the things that were going on in my mind. That was a fun image. And the other one was, like the hurricane rains, and those are really hitting home. And I like there's flooding and raining down in, you probably saw or heard some evidence of it down in Greenville, South Carolina, but all through North Carolina, there was flooding. And that's part of my life going down there here from Cincinnati. And so those scenes really resonated with me. And so I think you can't help but bring that your personal emotion into your work.
I'm so excited now about especially that image with the truck. So what I love is, I just think of the arc of this idea of home. And right in that moment, that's in the very center of the arc, where if you look at the image, the young person there is looking back at the home and feeling the loss of security, but they're not yet ready to understand that the true idea of that child's home is in the cab of that truck with her. And so like we as the reader can kind of get there maybe on a second or third or fifth reading and looking at the image. But Loren also did a really smart thing where if you look at the negative space, maybe that's the wrong terminology, Loren, but it's in the shape of a house, the structure of how they're, kind of giving this little girl a place to perch, right? And they're holding hands, they're all touching. So it's actually a physical form of home within the cab of the truck. So that's the very middle of the arc of this story, because eventually the young people in the vignettes, they do see other things as home, not just the physical structure. So that's really a big, profound moment for me with the illustrations too, just seeing her inability to see what's in the cab with her.
Yeah, I love that. And I love, it's so great to as a reader, we all come and we take away what we want, right? And so I love this moment to sort of dissect that and what your intention was, what Loren's intention was, and how when they come together, it just became something even bigger between the words and the pictures. I'm Australian and I hadn't been home for 8 years, and I just went back. And it's funny, the picture that you pick, right, is of that truck pulling away and the kids watching the house kind of getting smaller and smaller. And I did that exact same thing when I hopped on the airplane to return to this home. And I just watched the land and the beaches and the ocean go away until the clouds covered over my window and I couldn't see it anymore. But I think that's such a poignant moment. And I think it rings true for anybody that's leaving one home. But I was also returning to home. The rest of my family was here. And that goes back to your word, Loren, family. Like that, I was sad to leave my Australian home, but I was returning to my family home. Yeah, it's really beautiful. So I think also what you just touched on too, Loren, was the flooding, right, that happens in the Carolinas. And we've got the wildfires that, from LA, and we had wildfires here in Colorado. And we're not here to talk about climate or anything political, as well. Is climate change real? But I mean, we are seeing all of these devastating things that take down the house structure and the belongings. And so I feel like this sense of what home really is needed more than ever. So Matt, let's start with you on this one. How do you hope that this story might help children process the changing nature of home in today's world?
So I think two things come to mind. One of them is on topic, one of them is off, but I'll start on topic. I think I want young people, but I really do think picture books are for everyone. And you do have two audiences when you create a picture book. You have the child, and then the person who's reading to that child or leading them through a discussion in class. So I wanted to challenge everyone to kind of see beyond the physical structure of home. And I really wanted to land on the oneness of us all, kind of like a bit of a Buddhist idea, but just that we're all together. And by the way, you used the word empathy earlier. And it's just so much easier to have empathy for everyone around you if you understand that we're all so interconnected. So there's that. But then you made me also think, earlier I said we try so hard to impose our will on the natural world and carve out space for our human life. And it reminds me of something I learned early on. My dad was a very quiet man, working class guy, didn't have the language to say a lot of the things he wanted to teach us. But I remember he always was into the ocean. He loved the ocean and he surfed, and we called him the Mexican hippie surfer. But, a couple times when I was young, sixth grade, I'd go out there with him and I'd just get crushed by these waves. They would just destroy me and I'd be fighting so hard against them. And at one point he just was like, you can never win and you have to submit to the ocean. It's bigger than you. And then he taught me how to work with the ocean and let it be the dominant force. And I just think that we have to do that as humans, is just allow the earth to be the dominant force. You see these fires, we can't compete with this. We just have to, I think, live alongside earth and not against earth.
Yeah. Loren, what about you?
I love that metaphor, the ocean and the power. Bianca, please ask me the question again.
Yeah. So how do you hope that this particular story might help children process the changing nature of home in today's world?
Well, I do think that, there's so much going on just in the last year. We have the fires, we have the hurricane, and then every community, it feels like so many communities there are disasters. But I think I would probably I'm not breaking new ground here, but just that security that I think a child reading this book with someone that cares for them can have, and discussions. So we talk a lot about what makes a good picture book. It's hard to answer that question because this is definitely a book that isn't, giggles and laughs, but it's a quiet moment. And I love the idea that maybe a teacher or a librarian or a parent could read a really funny book, and then also pick up this book to have more of a contemplative discussion. I could see somebody essentially reading this and then talking about it and then relating it to their life and then giving them a hug, giving their child a hug. Okay, maybe there's 3 children or 2 or 1. Let's all just hug. This feels like home to me, and that those are really warm, fuzzy feelings. But those are the things, that's what I love about our world, our children's literature world. The act of reading a book to a child is rivaled by no other institution, art form, two people or one person and a group of kids. Can you imagine that still being a safe harbor? It is a safe harbor, but could you imagine that still competing against all the other technical forms of our modern society? It still is. There's nothing like it. And what we're doing there when we're reading to somebody we love is, when they're little, especially in the perfect sense, maybe they're your child or you're related somehow, or you love them some way, you're not only giving that child all the advantages we know that is educational, but you're giving them a feeling and a security that they can carry with them their entire life. There's no doubt that there are 75-year-old and 80-year-olds out there that still remember not only a book they loved when they were little, but who read it to them. And that security can be a safe harbor throughout life.
Yeah.
You know what? Since I'm pointing or painting my dad as like this voice of wisdom in my life, could I do one more thing with my dad? So in the book, there's a moment, a hawk circling the sky, measuring the sky with its wings. these hawks end up in all my books. And there's a reason when my dad, again, quiet guy, he'd walk me and my sister to the park sometimes. And occasionally we'd be on the sidewalk and he'd just stop us. And he wouldn't say anything, but he had spotted a hawk in the sky and he'd just point. And what he was saying, even though he didn't have the language to say it, he was saying, stop. Isn't the world beautiful? We have to notice it. And honestly, I think Loren and I probably both agree with this. All you're doing when you write a picture book, I think, is you're saying to a reader, potential reader, stop, look at the world. Isn't it beautiful? Or, like Loren said, if it's a funny book, isn't it hilarious? Or isn't it silly? And it just so happens this book is just saying, God, isn't it beautiful?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Matt, one of my favorite reading moments where an author read out loud, I already shared this with you in one of our previous discussions, was when you read Love to everybody at a conference in a keynote. So I am hoping that today you can just take a quick second to read a portion of Home to us. Will you do that?
Sure. Which section would you like? I'll let you choose.
No, you have to pick. What's coming? What's your heart and mind telling you to read right now?
I mean, I kind of want to turn to the natural world since I've talked about that so many times. Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
I'm going to start with the mother and child who went, onto the branch. One evening, your mom veers off the paved road for a trail that cuts through the woods. Together you climb the gnarled branches of an old oak tree to breathe the cool air and watch the colorful sky. Now most days you come to the seashore. While your brother collects shells, you sink your feet deep into the sand and read your books and think your quiet thoughts. And slowly, very slowly, you shed the hurry like old skin and turn instead to wonder. Home is not the walls we build up around our orderly little lives, but the wild, wild world outside. It's the hawks steadily circling overhead, measuring the sky with its wings. And it's the roar of the tide retreating over rocks. It's the floppy flight of a monarch butterfly and the sweet smell of sunlight shining down on a field of jasmine. It's a wish made on the first star you see while you tow back and forth on a tire swing. Maybe I'll stop there.
I love it. I also just enjoyed watching Loren smiling at you reading it. Loren, again, I have to ask you, what was going through your mind as Matt read that?
It's kind of fun. It's kind of a fun experience because one of my favorite things I've said this before about touring with Matt for Love was, number one, all the attention wasn't on me. But I got to sit and draw a little bit while he was reading.
That was so fun, by the way.
Yeah. And I just remember, I got to hear him read Love 40 times or whatever, or maybe more. There's just I love the way he reads his own work. But just then I was remembering images that I had painted and thinking, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. And then, and there are two favorite moments too, for me, if you want me to share with you. I love this one where Matt writes, most days you come to the seashore while your brother collects shells. You sink your feet deep into the sand and read your books and think your quiet thoughts. And slowly, very slowly, you shed the hurry like old skin and turn instead toward wonder. So my goal for this one, Bianca, wasn't to create, to bring some, groundbreaking concept. My goal here was to hit the emotion that could raise to the level of that mood and that moment. And I was really proud of this painting because of its lighting and
yeah. That was actually my personal favorite moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think because I read Home right after I got back from Australia and I had just sat on the beach and I was I felt seen.
Oh, that's so cool. Another one, then you might also identify with this one, was another beach scene where again, not breaking any new creative ground or anything, but just trying to rise to the mood. And that is, home is not the voice inside your head insisting, I want, which is great, which is a great theme for everyone, all of us. But the slow gather of an ocean swell and the quiet weeping of the busker's violin. This image is all about light, just trying to rise to that moment. And
so beautiful.
Yeah. So like, just as an artist, sometimes there's just, I think I pulled off the lighting that I wanted and that one worked out, and because there's so many that don't live up to what you think you can paint in your head.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask this question because I love to end this way every time. But Loren, I'll start with you. If listeners were to take away just one thing from our conversation today, just one, what would it be?
The sense of security and home you can create by reading to your children. That is a sense of home to me, And that would be mine.
I love it. Matt, what about you? One thing that listeners would take away from our conversation today.
Can I do two?
You can cheat. You can do two, Matt.
Okay.
I'll let you.
I got to do two because one, I love kind of like listening to Loren's excitement and how he described himself as like feeling like a little kid sometimes. Oh, I get to do this. I feel like that is the true mark of somebody who is doing what they're supposed to be doing, is that excitement. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the business. It's like so exciting. And then the other thing is I found myself talking about my dad a couple times, and I just want to say, like, I am so glad that somehow I chose to celebrate the wisdom of a working class person. To me, like, that's so incredibly important, and it's part of like where I'm coming from with all my stories. And I think that it's awesome that came out somehow in the interview.
Yeah. Well, I need to thank you both so much for sharing your beautiful insights about home. It was so fun to see you each like nod along and smile at the different things you were each saying, because I know that while it's a collaborative process, you also both worked on the text and the illustrations separately. And so to be able to come together and enjoy it together, it was really fun to watch you both kind of smile and nod. And I just think together you've created like not just a book, but a gentle reminder that home exists wherever we find love, connection, and belonging. And in a world where the concept of home is constantly evolving, like, as I said before, this message feels more important than ever. And so, like love before it, home feels destined to become a classic that families will treasure for generations to come.
Thank you, Bianca.
Thank you, Bianca, so much. Appreciate what you do.
Thanks. Thank you so much for joining us on our quest for growing readers. That concludes our conversation with Matt de la Peña and Loren Long about their beautiful new picture book, Home. If you'd like to learn more about these talented creators, please visit their websites, Matt de la Peña at mattdelapena.com, Loren Long at lorenlong.com. And you'll find these links in our show notes. I'm not going to spell them out for you, so go ahead and head on over to the show notes and click on those links, because along with their websites, you'll find links to purchase your own copy of Home. The book is also available in Spanish and as an audiobook for those who prefer to listen. So thank you for listening, and until next time, keep reading, keep connecting, and keep finding home in all the beautiful places it exists, including your very own heart. The Growing Readers podcast is a production of the Children's Book Review. For more outstanding children's book recommendations, author interviews, resources for young readers, I hope you'll visit us at thechildrensbookreview.com.